special good morning to our listeners, those of you via Classic Radio. Good morning, 105.5, 105.9. Good morning, and how are you? And I certainly hope all is well. Whatever part of the island you're listening to us, good morning and welcome to The Point. And those of you who are viewing via GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11, or Channels 20, good morning to you also. I certainly hope all is well with you, and welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being Tuesday, the 12th of September, 2023. With me this morning, I have Mr. Roland, Bhola, the General Secretary of the New National Party. Do you know, I think folks I get the drift by now. Every Tuesday we do entertain, someone representing the opposition here in Grenada. And Mr. Bhola, being with us this morning, being the General Secretary of the New National Party. Mr. Bhola, good morning and welcome to The Point this morning. Nice to have you back once again.
Good morning to you. Thank you very much. Good morning to your listeners. As you've said, by whatever means they're listening, it's always a pleasure to come to share ideas. Sometimes it's a challenge because, of course, not everything that you're exposed to means that the general public and agrees with you. But of course, as humans, we need to exchange our ideas, sometimes even express our differences. Once we are respectable to each other, I have no difficulty with that.
I certainly agree with you on that level. Let's start a conversation this morning. The New National Party. How is things within the New National Party? From the last conversation we had, we spoke a lot about things that are plans that you were having in terms of the various going around the various constituencies. You did speak about that. How was things from then now? How are things progressing so far?
Pretty good. I would have liked to say excellent, but it's not excellent. It's good. And the reason why I say it's not excellent, because at the pace in which it's happening, for my own liking, and I
reasons for that?
Yeah, yes, and I guess for the liking of quite a number of other people, would have liked to see things moving faster. And that means that all of the plans that we have, they are ongoing in terms of putting the groupings together and making sure that the constituencies are politically and structurally ready. And so what you have, I believe, what I've stepped into us, I still believe that the loss of the last general election still have some of our people. I don't want to say wondering, because I think there has been time enough for us to understand where we made our mistakes, what our shortcomings were. We did not do our work as well as we were supposed to. But I think in the minds of some people, accepting blame where they went wrong is oftentimes very difficult. And as a result, there is some hesitancy. There's still some people that are saying, well, I'm still so, I don't want to get involved yet. Give me time, and so forth.
So is that staggering feeling from individuals, you would say?
Yes, generally that. In some other instances, I think some people are still a little bit concerned and worried about exact direction. They don't understand where the party is heading, and it all surrounds that cloudiness in the minds of some people, I would say, about leadership, and I know it's going to come up, convention and so forth. Now, if you take the constitution of the party to its word, it says that a convention should be held at least once every 12 months. Yes? We have gone past that. But you also have an executive which is elected during a convention. And there are certain preconditions. While it should happen within a 12 months, there are certain preconditions that must be fulfilled before you can actually have a convention. And that is, and one of those are, is the organization of the constituencies. Right. But let me move off that a little bit to say, organization of constituencies are not just for convention. That is the way in which the party is supposed to run from the ground up. You have to organize village by village, constituency by constituency, to get the national organization going. And when you are organized, you are not just organized for a general council or convention, but you organize as a party to take leadership. Because I think that's the final aim of every political party. Yes? You want to be at the helm, you want to be in leadership, you want to be in governance. But if you are not organized, getting into governance, you're not going to last any time.
Well, folks may say with the New National Party being in power for the last 2 terms, before the last this time they had 2 terms. So they say organization should not have been a problem.
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't have been a problem. Why is it that? Why is it that you haven't that? I mean, I understand that the opposition leader did mention regrouping and all of that.
Yes.
Why is it still at the nature that it is at still?
Because for anyone who has had an opportunity to work with people on a mass basis, I'm not just talking about a family or a village group, talking about mass amount of people. The most difficult thing to do is to keep masses of people in order, to get them to follow. Now, as humans, we always believe, listen, man, he says go right, but in my mind, I think if we go left, we're going to be better. Well, let me just go left to see what would happen. It's not easy. And it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse, really, because when you look at places like China, I mean, their system of governance is different to ours, but they have been able to keep their people in check. But they use a different system.
Yes.
Grenada, you're free. It's democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of movement. So you really can't tie and clamp people down to doing what you want them or what you expect them to do. So there's that latitude that people have. And also, sadly to say, but true, sometimes when you are in the seat of power, you are in office, you are making the decisions, you are calling the game. The things that you're really supposed to see, sometimes you don't see it. You become blind to it. So people start going sideways. But because your focus is not solely on organization of the party, but more on governance of the country, you sometimes lose sight of the basic things that should be done. Yes?
Right.
You go after bigger things. And it's only until times like now, and you come
realize
back to
the direction you should have
realize that there were some mistakes that was made, there were things that should have been done. So we are trying to build back a party. Not that the party is lost, it's about calling back all of your members together, giving them directives and direction, and you who are at the helm also leading by example, showing the way.
The opposition leader did mention, and he mentioned it a couple of times, that the New National Party lost the election by not paying attention to what's going on the ground. You understand? He did mention that. What have you been picking up, or have you picked up, I should say, from folks on the ground, in terms of, in terms of the state of the New National Party, being the General Secretary? Being
the General Secretary, I have the opportunity to move around quite a bit and interact with a lot of people, being in meetings, and I'm talking now, the core of our people, the little ground meetings, I'm there, I'm almost everywhere. And, we took a lot of things for granted. And one of the things that I recognize is that over the years, the NNP had and continues to enjoy strong support from people. Yes? What we have not done very well is to concretize that support and to transfer it into full membership of the party. So, you meet groups here, you meet young people, you meet senior people, and they tell you, well, I've been voting for NNP for much years. Have you ever joined the party? No. Did you ever fill out a form, and do you hold a party card? No. So there's really nothing to hold on to in terms of loyalty. You're there because probably, and I'm not saying that's the only reason, you may have been given a job by a member of government who was with the NNP, or your child or children may have received assistance with a scholarship, you've received house repair.
So you're supported.
So you're supporting, but you're not really a member. So we are on a quest to build a stronger membership. And of course, you won't get everybody to be members. Yeah. Some people like that freedom of moving where they want to, when they want to. But if we can get more commitment from membership of the party, but mind you, especially now at this time, the call for NNP is even louder and greater than before.
All right. Tell me, the NNP moving forward into the next general election, when it will be called in the next time the election called, what's different the NNP is considering now?
Well, there have to be a lot of differences. I mean, when you take and you look back and you do a study of what the last election was like, I think there was great complacency. A lot of the candidates felt, well, it was a must-win for me, without wanting to do the work, really. Yeah. Because people felt, look, we have won 15 seats back to back. Who is there to beat NNP?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at your opponents, and most people said to themselves, well, they are just a bunch of novice young people. They don't know anything about politics. They don't have no experience. Nobody would bother with them. And we fail to understand human behavior and human thinking. People sometimes like to go for the unknown. Something new come on the market. You've never seen it. You know nothing about it, but you want to try it. Of course, you want to know what it's like. Yes? And I think we fail to have recognized that. We have failed in a lot of other ways. We took a lot for granted. We felt that, nobody is better than NNP. We have done well economically.
That indestructible feeling.
That kind of a feeling. No, you can't go into an election with that kind of feeling because you depend on people. And humans, they are not like machines or like animals. They think.
Yes.
Right? And they have desires of their own. And if you don't listen to them, and if you are not in connection with them, if you are not on the ground to understand what they're feeling, right? And then today you hear some people say, well, boy, we were fooled, we got a lot of lies. But, of course, if someone is offering you something that you're not accustomed to, and who you're accustomed with are not saying anything, they're not offering you anything. And I'm not saying here that as a party we need to go out and say untruth to people or promise people things that we know that are not achievable or may not be able to be fulfilled. But we need to at least understand what is it people want, what are they looking for, what is it they are expecting from us. And the only way we will know that is to be in touch with them. And that is why we're spending so much time trying to regain that trust and confidence and to embrace people and be part of what they're feeling and what they're doing. So we become one.
All right. Tell me, so there's still no particular timeline when we're going to hear as yet, as you mentioned, the regrouping and everything is understandable. Could we say 6 months from now? Convention another year from now? I'm spreading my wings wide a little bit.
I know, but I'll be very honest with you. I don't want to suggest any dates. I mean, because it is not. And I think I've explained that here before on some other forum, that as General Secretary, it is not my prerogative to say or to decide, when a convention is going to be. My role is to get the constituencies ready and then report to the National Executive. Look, we're ready. X amount of constituencies are ready, because you don't generally have to get all 15. It's best to have all 15 constituencies ready structurally and politically. But you don't have to have all of them to have a convention. But that will be the determination of the National Executive to say, look, X date, Y date. And the second reason why I don't want to suggest any date, some time ago in a different forum, when the same question was placed to me, I said I couldn't say what date it was. However, though, and I'm repeating what I said then, in my own deliberations as General Secretary, I gave the political leads, the people who were leading the political work at the various constituencies, up till the end of July as a deadline to be ready with the constituency. Yes? And if we had achieved that, take that to the executive, and the executive can then make a determination whether it's a month, 2 months, 3 months thereafter. It was up to them. At one of our executive meetings, when I reminded the people about the deadline, many of them said they won't be ready for the deadline. And the chairman of the party then extended the deadline from July to September. And then all over Facebook and wherever I heard it being said that Roland Bhola say convention will be in September. And that was never what I said. It was not the truth. As I explain here now, that's what I said, that there was an extension to the political leads to have the constituency ready by September. So I'm not going to suggest any date. I don't know. I believe it can be sooner than later. But I'd leave that where it is.
The New National Party have lost a number of seats in the last general election. Will they be replacing some of the individuals who may not have won their seats? Are there going to be new caretakers taking over in certain constituency and so forth?
There's a good possibility of that.
Yes.
So, for example, we had in St. Andrews Northwest. a candidate that was there that we don't have anymore. So definitely.
It's only obvious.
That's obvious. And there are some other constituencies where I believe there are people who probably feel that they have made it for long enough. They've gone, to the end of their journey. And in fact, there's a separate committee that looks at that altogether in terms of selection and so forth.
For you being the General Secretary, has there been any individuals that have been identified? I will not put you on the spot here for that. Individuals may have identified. You may not want to give names this morning.
No, I can't give any names because first and foremost, people must give a commitment publicly before any one of us. But there have been conversations ongoing with several persons, in some of the potential areas where there might be changes.
Okay. We drew for a break. Let's take it. We come back and discuss some more. Folks, it's To The Point for today, Tuesday, the 12th day of September. With me this morning, the General Secretary of the New National Party, Mr. Roland Bhola. We're coming right back after the break. Stay with us, folks.
Mommy?
Hello, ECS. Yo, OECS, this is your ocean. If I am to protect your future, we have to work together. It's the time to work together. If I am to help protect your future. Once I used to be so pure and clean, and those hills were so fresh and green. But now you see me as your dumping ground. Current situations have me choking on your pollution. Think hard about it, you will agree that really there is no you without me. Make the zero waste pledge, be responsible. Reduce your waste, recycle where possible. It's down to you, so make the commitment. Recycle for blue oceans and our betterment. Recycle OECS, green actions, blue oceans. For blue oceans and our betterment.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's To The Point here on GBN TV and Classic Radio. Welcome back, Mr. Bhola. So, another segment of question I would like to ask is referring to the opposition leader press conference that was held a couple of days ago. And he did spoke a lot, spoke about the Koana Bay, of course, hotel issue that there, which government plans, the new administration plans of doing with it and so forth. Tell us about the press conference and what are the main reasons the press conference was held and so forth.
Well, let me just step back and put it that way. Government has roles and functions, and so too does the opposition whenever the people of the country provide you with one. Because we have seen in the history of Grenadian politics when there were occasions when the electorate did not provide you with an opposition. And in the minds of some people, they think that being in opposition is to oppose everything that government does. And that's absolutely not the case. And that's not how the NNP view it.
Okay.
The NNP believe that we have a role to play, and that role has to be positive and forward-thinking. And while we may oppose certain things, the way in which it's done, or probably some things we think didn't make sense doing, we need to offer solutions. Yes, and that's why we're trying. So from time to time, you would see that the party would have press conferences. There were times when you had other members of parliament or sitting MPs that did the press conference. And last Tuesday, we had the political leader of the party doing it. Many of the issues that were raised are issues that we have sat and spoke about and felt that alternative method or alternative ways could have been used to deal with some of those problems. And problems are not unique to this particular administration. There was problems in the past, and there will continue to be problems in the future. Because as I've said before, you're dealing with human beings, and things do happen. Sometimes you plan to go down a certain pathway, and government do have plans. I believe every government plans, and sometimes things just didn't work out the way in which you planned. But when people elect you into office, they elect you and they put the trust and confidence in you because they expect you to make decisions that are going to be most beneficial to them or to the majority, I should say.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so the opposition from time to time would raise issues. They would have press conferences. They would come on to the point to other programs and point out what they consider to be ill-fated projects or plans that the government have, or things that went wrong, or why they went wrong, and what the government should do.
The opposition did speak a lot pertaining to the Kuana Bay, of course, project a whole lot in terms of the battle within that, and he chose to speak about that because, of course, the last time in Parliament we had the Prime Minister speaking in terms of reclaiming the property and so forth.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
With a loan. I don't have all of the details, but what I know it was one of the Citizen by Investment program. It was being financed through that. Yes, and very early there was some issues. There were some problems. Matters that I may not be able to fully explain, or probably I don't think I have the width of knowledge to explain. But it had to do, I believe, in the way in which the monies for the project was being utilized. Yeah, and so the people who were in charge of the program had to call in the investor and ask for certain changes and to make different arrangements. Something that, in my understanding, that the investor was not too happy with, and as a result, there was a breakdown, so to speak. So that project is incomplete as far as I know. And I know the matter went to arbitration. What was the full result, I don't know. But it ended up where now the present administration decided to purchase or buy over the project and complete it. In the minds of a lot of us, is it bad for government to own a hotel?
Because that's what my next question was leading to. Is the opposition happy with the decision that government has made?
The opposition is not too happy with the decision at this time, And when you look around, and I'll tell you why, when you look around, there are so many areas that is lacking of the investment that is necessary to create quality life for people. Healthcare, for example. I mean, a lot is needed there. It has always been an area that needed greater attention. But I think at this time, it's even worse than it has ever been. And I mean, you just have to speak to people who've been to the general hospital. You just have to speak to workers in there, and they will tell you about the lack of equipment and other things, and the working conditions has deteriorated even worse than it was before. Yes? And as an opposition, we think that it would be money better spent to invest in those areas. So you look at the youths of the country, you look at the rate of crime, and no one is blaming the Prime Minister, because sometimes I hear people say, well, there's another shooting, there's another death, where is the Minister of National Security? The Minister of National Security doesn't have to be everywhere to protect everybody. We have a certain responsibility for our own protection. Of course, you have the law enforcement officers that you can call on, but if we find ourselves doing things that are not correct and putting ourselves in harm's way, then we need to take some blame. But sometimes you have to look at the root causes. Why would people do X or do Y as opposed to doing A or B? And it could be something, the lack of opportunities. I'll give you an example. There's a company in the north that about 2 months ago put out an ad that they were looking to hire one tour guide. It's a place that tourists visit. Yeah. And within 3 weeks, there were over 150 applications for that position. And it was not just people from St. Andrews and St. Patrick's. There was over 40 or so applications from St. George's, from St. John's. I mean, just people all over the country. It's an indication. I know of another place that put out an ad. They were looking for, I think, a cook or a helper in a restaurant and so. And within no time at all, there were over 80 applications for it, right? that can tell you a number of things. Maybe people are interested in getting work, but it also says that joblessness is a concern. There's so much people out there hoping to get a job.
So is it an issue where you say government should be prioritizing certain projects and
more or less, yes, right? And in the mind of the opposition, they do not believe that this one should be a priority at this time. Yes, and so that's why, and probably the way in which it happened, the leader of the opposition probably has more inside knowledge than I do, so he was very hard on that.
All right. Now, you tapped into it a little bit, and I mean, it's a concern for me as a regular citizen. You are being a part of the New National Party as a regular citizen also. Crime in Grenada seems to be becoming a little bit of a concern, not for everyone. You understand? Grenadians at home and abroad, everyone seems to be concerned about crime in this country. For the last couple of days, we have had two murders taking place.
Yeah.
Tell us the opposition. I always see the opposition has spoken about wanting to work with government in terms of helping in terms of curbing this problem. We wouldn't say that crime never occurred during the NMP reign.
Absolutely,
we can't say that. No, it's not a first time in Grenada for crimes taking place. Also, you understand, but it has gotten to a point where it's becoming a bit worrisome on the irregularity. I would say in terms of we're hearing things happening. You understand? Tell us the New National Party what's how they feel in terms of what is going on lately.
Definitely, crime has exacerbated a bit, and it's a concern for us. And that is why I say the opposition has a role, just like the government does, and the opposition cannot take the role of government. Government has its own role.
So true.
And so after we having roundtable discussions among ourselves, the opposition went as far as to do a consultation, invited persons whom we think may have ideas, persons who have worked in that field before, law enforcement personnel, retired, people who still has some sort of psychological background, and there was a consultation in which a lot of valuable information was gathered. The last I know is that there was a small team of persons made up of some of the members of parliament of the opposition and other persons in society. Having put all the recommendations together, they were kind of stitching them all together and preparing it to send a copy out to government of what came out from the consultation. And that is the opposition saying, look, we are concerned, we are willing to help, we can't take your place. We don't want to come and tell you that, oh you're not making sense, so move out of the way. No, that's not our role. You have your role, and maybe the government is having closed-door discussions as we speak, talking about how they can tackle it. But whatever we can do, we want to share it with government. Whether they use it or not, whether they accept it or not, that would be a deal for them. Likewise, we are going to pretty soon be doing another consultation on the economy and where things are going. We recognize that there's a harder cry from the people in terms of cost of living. Maybe some of the reasons why prices are up may not totally be the fault or may not fall in the lap of government, because the world over to purchase items is getting much more expensive, but maybe there are things that the government can do to cushion the effect, and we are going to explore and look at all of those. And likewise, as we did with the crime situation, whatever the findings, we're going to share it with government, and it will be up to them, do whatever they wish. But crime as a whole is something that we have to put our fingers on and try to see how, if not totally eradicate and stop it, but to limit it. I mean, there was a time when we'd have probably 2 or 3 per year in Grenada, but now it seems as though it's running away, like it's a 100-meter dash. And for a small country who depend heavily on tourism for creating livelihoods for a lot of people, we cannot allow those things to happen. And I am not blaming any particular individual. I'm just saying that as a country and a countryman and one who concerns and care about Grenada, we need to put all our efforts together and see what we can do, because just as crime will affect members of the government, it affects members of the opposition. It affects all of us. It affects all Grenadians, Sometimes it causes you to wonder who is next. Am I in the lineup? Are you in the lineup? What if people start thinking Grenada is no longer a safe haven, a safe place where they can come for relaxation and leisure and go to the beach easily and live out in one of the little cottages, outside.
Walk around freely.
And walk around freely. If people start thinking that way, then probably Grenada no longer will be a destination. That affects all of us, whether you're in opposition or in government. So it is something that we must not just talk about, but we must show by our action. And the opposition has started. You never know. Based on what is happening, we may want to do another consultation on crime after we round robin and look at things. There may be other people with ideas that we can tap into, people we may have relationships with that can offer some advice. And of course, we are willing and will share with the government whatever we get.
All right. My next line of question wants to do, I know this has always been passionate to you. You've been a farmer yourself now, and agriculture.
For a long time.
You also Minister of Agriculture back there during the past administration. At one time you were Minister of Agriculture. How concerned you about agriculture in Grenada right now, if there is a concern?
There has always been a concern for agriculture, not just now. One of the greater concerns many years ago and still exists now has been what they call the average age of our farmers. You find, yes, in recent years we have seen an influx of younger people, some young people, into agriculture. We have always been encouraging that. But what it is for these younger people, they are more into what is referred to the short crop version of farming.
Okay.
The watermelons, the tomatoes, those things that
bring that quick return.
3 months, 4 months, 5 months, they bring that. What has been happening for our medium and longer term crops, or coconuts, or nutmeg, which is going down a bit, cocoa, and those things. While they're hard work, it's a lot of hard work, and takes a long time to see returns. Not as lucrative over the short term as the watermelon and other things. There's not been a lot of young people into that. They have the area of animal husbandry, small ruminants, goat, sheep, even cattle. Almost non-existent in Grenada. You go to the market now, I was shocked. It's not something that I dwell on a lot, so I don't go to the meat market very often. One of the things I like a lot is mutton. But I was shocked a couple of months ago. I went to the meat market and I asked for some mutton. I wanted to get a couple of pounds of that. And a couple of the butchers got a good laugh. And they said, Mr. Bhola, what are you talking about? It's months now we can't see a little sheep or goat to slaughter. And then one of the butchers said, the last time he got a piece of mutton to buy was a couple of Sundays, a few months before he was passing through the village of Pauls, he said. And there's one guy who lives there. That sometimes on a Sunday if he has animals, see. And he said, but when I went to buy a few pounds of that, the price of mutton is $15 a pound. I said, but I know mutton is $10. He said, you're joking, $15 a pound. And that is when I also discovered that beef and pork had moved from $10 a pound to $12 a pound now. Yes?
Okay.
And the butchers themselves were saying, look, one of the guys from up St. Andrew's side, they used to do a trade with St. Vincent, bringing in a whole lot of cattle. That had started a long time ago, since in our time in government. And now he's considering going to St. Lucia and probably Dominica because he can't get
from St.
Vincent anymore. So these are troubling issues, yes? And they said food security is equivalent to national security. If you can't feed your people, if you can't produce to feed your people, it becomes a concern. So it would be really nice to see this government make some efforts. Come up with some innovative program. Yes, NNP was there. We tried a couple of things, youth in agriculture and what have you. the mantra of this government is all about transformation. So it would be nice to see some sort of transformative efforts being made in the agricultural sector.
But individuals may say that the new administration has only been here 14 months in office. Maybe there's not that massive transformation will be seen now in terms of their plans in agriculture. We hear the Minister of Agriculture speaks a lot about all of the plans that they have, even though a lot of them has not fully materialized as yet. But would you say is a time frame that these things will come into play?
Well, I haven't heard much of the plans speaking about how they will transform agriculture. I mean, a lot of what is being said are things that were either in train or things that has been happening. I have not heard, and maybe he said it, but I have not heard the Minister of Agriculture, anyone in that area, talking about how we will deal with that issue of the lack of small ruminants. The butchers are saying we can't get a sheep. Even pigs, sometimes they import from St. Vincent.
Okay.
Yeah? I have not heard a plan, and maybe they are developing. I don't know. If that's the case, they must say so. I can't speak for them because I don't know. But it's really worrying. And like I said in the beginning, there's always been a problem with agriculture in terms of encouraging younger people, making it worthwhile. There were some suggestions that came up a long time ago how you can infuse money. And governments do put money into agriculture. I am not one of those who would say that government doesn't spend money in agriculture. That is not true at all. I mean, almost every farmer in Grenada who can bring the documentation, the records, to prove to government that they can turn over $35,000 to $40,000 a year in the farming process, and whether they employ 2 or 3 people, and they are desirous of purchasing a suitable vehicle for assisting them in farming. Government gives 100% concession on getting a vehicle, duties and taxes. So that's a lot of money. I mean, it's not direct dollars going in, but that's money that should be going into government coffers for duties and taxes. So government they do invest. However, though, I believe that we need to rethink the way in which we do some things, because the monies are going in, but the returns are not showing benefit on the dollars that we put in.
All right. We drew for a break. When we come back, I want to get into the MNIB a wee bit. Of course, from the last time we heard the Prime Minister spoke about it, there's not much movement in terms of it. And let's get your take on it when we come back. Let's take a break. We're coming back, folks, to the point. Juno, our next segment, before we invite your calls from our listeners and viewers, feel free to give us a call. You may have a question for Mr. Bhola. You would like to ask it. Feel free to do so. We're coming right back after the break. Stay with us, folks.
More chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your